All right, Shalom. First and foremost, let's start off by giving all honors and glory and praises due to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakakadash. Double honors to the apostles, bishops, the elders of Great Millstone, the men that told me this truth, and peace and salutation, Brakathum, to all you sincere Akim, laboring in this truth throughout the four corners of the earth. All right, and there you have it. Things are very soon about to escalate here on the earth concerning World War III prophecy and the end of Esau's rulership. Okay, America's hegemony, as we seeing, is about to go down. The Lord is about to take this man down very soon. All right, and you got Trump basically saying that all these nations that these countries that deal with Iran, they're gonna be hit with a tariff, and this is just gonna escalate into a all-out war, World War III. Now you're gonna get China involved, and all this man is doing is basically causing enemies all around the globe. Okay, even among his very own allies, allies such as the UAE, Oman, okay, even Turkey, which is an ally of NATO, which you heard in the past that, Trump saying that, America doesn't need NATO. If it wasn't for America, it'd be no NATO. See, these are all talks because eventually the prophecy of the beast shall hate the whore, that shall eventually come to pass, written in Revelation, the 17th chapter. And, this man is really, having it where these other countries, they're sick of America's bullshit. All right. They're sick of how, America, how they're proud. Okay. You had, I believe the president or the prime minister of Canada, he's saying that how under Trump's administration, is going to make where, they're not going to, Canada is not going to look at America as the same anymore, and this is what the Lord is doing in the spirit. He's turning all these countries against America. Okay, so they're talking about talks on cyber attack happening possibly here in America. And it's not by coincidence. You having all these blackouts out there in Indiana and also in Tennessee, and mind you, these places like Gary, Indiana, and Memphis, Tennessee, that's predominantly Jake. You see, so something major is going to happen. Something big, a black swan event is bound to happen. All right, and it's a thing that the elites go by. Auto ab chaos, which is order out of chaos. They're gonna cause a certain event to happen. And they're going to come with the solution, which the solution is going to be the mark of the beast. All right. Pursuant to Revelation, the 13th chapter, where things are going to happen, where it's going to be a time of trouble, and they're going to use an event like this. Like, the saying goes, never let a crisis go to waste. So they're going to use this event, whatever happens, a cyber attack or blackout, whatever, right, to cause the people, right, to have it where the solution is to take the mark of the beast, to take the chip, so things can go back to normal. You see? So let's see, man. Let's see what comes out of this. But I believe through the spirit something major is going to happen very soon. And also you got Turkey. Turkey is also supposed to play a major part as far as, end time prophecy when it deals with Ezekiel the 38th chapter, Turkey being Gomar in the scriptures. They're gonna side with Gog and Magog, which is Russia. Okay, so that's something to also look forward to. Okay, but let me get something real quick. This is the book of Matthew, chapter 24, and I'm gonna start at verse 19. It says, "And woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days," right? And that's talking about you women, all right? You women that have children, okay? Especially in the time during a blackout where there's no power, all right? A lot of you're gonna wish in those days that you ain't have no children, man. Okay, because for one, having a child in that type of scenario or that situation is going to be hard, because for one, a baby is going to be crying, it's going to need formula. How you going to heat up milk when there's no power, right? How you going to keep that baby, from crying when it's like, you're in the dark? You see what I'm saying? This is crazy, man. That's why the scriptures label this time as being the time of Jacob's trouble. And Jacob's trouble, you so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans, you represent Jacob. So this is going to be a time like never before, since men been on the earth, man. A time of trouble, man. All right? Bad times are coming. Evil times are coming. And it says, "And to them that give suck in those days, pray ye that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day," right? Because, there's no power, right? That means that you can't have heat. And, us in the hood, we're so used to, like, turning on the stove and making that heat go through the oven. You ain't got no power, man. You're gonna likely freeze, man. Okay, you're gonna be freezing and trying to hold down a family of little small ones. You got little ones. It's gonna be hard, man. Okay, and just imagine you got to be on the run. Okay, it's bad, man. It's bad trying to be on the run and in the brick ass cold. All right, but it says neither on the Sabbath day, and it takes me back to the time of the Maccabees, when you had certain Jakes that didn't want to fight during the time of the Sabbath. They didn't want to fight, and they got slaughtered. So that the day of on the Sabbath day is a day of rest, being holy, but you might have to get carnal just in case, what I'm saying, somebody threatens your life. You might have to put that man down. See? So it says, "For then shall be great tribulation," right? "Such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be," man. So yeah, it's going to be bad times, great tribulation, for everybody on the earth, man. Okay? Well, I just know that something major is going to happen, man, because like the scriptures mentioned in let me see, let's get that in Revelation 12:12, because this devil, he knows that he has a short time, right? So it says, "Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea. For the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he have but a short time," man. See, these devils know that they have a short time to rule. They see that things have to go down. They have an agenda, all right, 2030, right? That's their whole thing, to push the year 2030. They want to have things already established by then. You see? But we understand that it's on the Lord's timing. Okay? You know? But that's why the Lord said, you know, for the elect's sake, he's going to shorten the days, man. He's going to shorten the time for the elect's sake. That's why something major got to happen very soon. Because if not, you know, this man, he'll continue to do all type of wickedness in the earth, you know, and he'll destroy himself and everybody around him, man. Destroy the elect, everybody. So that's why the Lord has to come at a certain time, man, because eventually there'll be no flesh left to be saved, man. You see? But something major is going to happen. I can feel it. Definitely feel it through the spirit, man. You know, it's not by coincidence that all these, you know, blackouts are happening here in America. You know, eventually, just imagine they talking about 18 months with no power. See, they might have it where they can possibly, you know, your own U.S. government can possibly create a scenario where all the lights go out, you know, and they'll blame it on China or they'll blame it on Iran. You know, they did that during the time of 9/11. Your own very own government. Who do you think brought down those towers? All right, it was the U.S. government, man. Okay, just so the U.S. can go into Iraq, you know, and Afghanistan, man. You see? So pretty sure they're going to stage another event just like that very soon. Okay? So, hey, man, that's why we got to always remain circumspect and you know, watching out for the times that we're coming into, because, you know, this devil ain't playing fair. All right? But I got something. This is Ephesians 5:15. It says, matter of fact, let me start at 14. It says, wherefore he saith, awake thou that sleepest, and arise from the dead. And the majority of our people, they're in a dead state. Okay, the whole earth, basically, you know, is in a world of darkness, man. Utter darkness. You know, they don't understand prophecy. They don't understand the times we're in. You see, you know, so they're gonna get caught out there, man. So we're not like those that sleep. You know, we're constantly watching. We're constantly on our guards. Okay? And it said, and Yahushua shall give thee light, which is the truth. And it says, see then that ye walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, man. You know, circumspect meaning to, you know, to look around. You know, always be on guard, man. Especially when you out on your day-to-day. You know, you're supposed to be always having your head on the swivel, man. Because anything can happen and pop off in any moment. All right? So we got to be as those that are wise and not as fools. Verse 16, it says, redeeming the time because the days are evil. Okay? Evil meaning bad times, man. That's what's coming ahead. All right? Bad times, man. So when you're hearing about all these trade wars going on, all right, between the U.S., Iran, you know, China and the U.S., these trade wars are going to lead to actual wars, man, where people are just going to get fed up and they're going to just start launching missiles. But like I said before these things can happen, you know, Revelation, the 13th chapter has to take place, which is the mark of the beast. Okay, that has to be implemented and made mandatory before those missiles are shot off. All right, but also know that, you know, the times that we're coming into, some evil times, man. They're talking about basically if you could turn off the lights or the power here in America for the next 18 months, this will bring us back into the Stone Age, man. You know, basically we're gonna be like like the Flintstones out here, man. Okay, and this is what the wicked elites want. Okay, so they can basically have it where people are going to be depending on their way of life, you know, their system. Okay, like who was it? this guy Klaus Schwab said, man. Okay, he said basically, they should own nothing and be happy. That's what the elites want. They want to reset this whole system where you don't own anything. You don't own anything, no property, no nothing in your name, and you're just currently dependent on their way of life, their system, okay, which is the B system. And the total control is to have everybody on the planet Earth microchipped. And this is what they want. All right? And that's if there's any survivors left after 18 months of no power. Because that's their plan, to depopulate as many people on the planet Earth as possible. All right. So with that, I'm going to end it there. All praises due to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahshai. Till the next time I say Shalom.